Ladies and gentlemen, the weekend.
And folks, it is the weekend. And I am William R. Washington, and I am so happy to be here. Sorry for the late start, folks. It turns out that for whatever reason, my computer just decided. I feel like Windows updates are like legit the worst when it comes to timing. And literally I sat down and my computer's being all funky and I'm like, all right, let me restart it. And then it kicks in and goes, okay, Windows updates will initiate. I'm like, no, that's not what I wanted. I just wanted to restart. And then it counts down percentage wise and then the computer restarts. And then it restarted like 3 or 4 times to the point of where I'm like, oh no, am I like stuck in a boot loop? Like, am I screwed here? And then it actually kicked in. But we are here. It is wrestling with weekends. It's my favorite part of the weekend. And folks, I am joined by one of my favorite guys in the wrestling community. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Mr. Joe Holbert.
Wow, what an indictment on the wrestling community that is, huh? I appreciate that. I mean, I can relate to that Windows update deal, man. That's like the ultimate podcaster enemy, right? But no, I'm happy to be here, man. It's great.
Well, especially when you're like going live, because like when you have something to do, of course it decides like right now, this is the time that you need to update. And granted, there's probably plenty of times I could have done it myself because, you know, you get the little pop-up and it's like, hey, Windows would like to update right now. And I'm like, whatever, let's do this later. And then I like kick the can down the road. And then finally at a time where I actually need to use my computer for something, then it's like, nah, this can't wait. Windows updates have to go live right now. Man, this is about to be one of the most exciting weeks like ever. I can't believe this is about to happen. Wait, before we get into all of that, a couple of things. I do want to let everybody know that with this being live, and hey, Taxel in the chat says Joe. So
fair.
This is a show that we do live on Saturdays. And hey, good morning, Daliano. I had it right last week, the last 2 weeks. But I do want to let everybody know that there's a couple of ways to check this show out. You can listen via audio at Mixlr. That's mixlr.com/fanoff. Again, mixlr.com/fanoff. There's a chat there if you're just audio wise. And I see Carrie in the chat and Antox and Mike Harmeyer. Mike, I hope you're going to be at Arthur Ashe this weekend. I have a feeling you will be because I know you were at the Prue in Jersey this week, and I feel like if there's any show to miss, that would have been the one. So hope to see you at Arthur Ashe. And I see Knock Knock in the chat. Yep, he says he'll be there. So yeah, definitely. And of course, that's what I'm talking about when I say this is going to be an exciting week. The other thing that I wanted to mention is giving us a call, 909-581-4RBR. That's 909-581-4727. If you want to be in on this show and just get your thoughts in. If you have any thoughts on the things we're talking about this week, or you just have any feelings of excitement. Are you in New York? Are you going to be in New York? I'm going to be in New York. And you know the thing I love about these wrestling trips that I've taken lately? Most of them have been and there is Jared Bailey says, have a great show, or good show, gents. Got NFL coverage I got to do. We'll listen later on. P.S. Cheers, Joe. And yeah, I just feel like All Out, for example. All Out was one of those shows I took a chance on just because it was just exciting. You know, nothing had been announced when All Out tickets went on sale, but I just knew that was the show that I wanted to be at and had to be at. There was no CM Punk rumors at the time. That story hadn't even broken yet. There was no hints at Bryan Danielson yet. That story hadn't broke yet when those tickets went on sale. There was none of that out there. So it was one of those, like, took a chance on that show and it ended up paying off. And same with the only thing about Grand Slam coming up this week that I knew going in was that Arthur Ashe looked hella dope. And I would like to be in that audience when it happens.
So this is interesting because we can, get into Dynamite as a broader subject. But so before this past Dynamite and Rampage, I had began to kind of waver in terms of like, is this Arthur Ashe show going to be as stacked as we initially thought it was? When they first announced like, MJF and Pillman, and it's like, okay, I just thought, will it be a good TV with a great main event? Or will it be the special show that we've all been fantasy booking for months? And then, as we know, obviously, we can get into more detail. At the end of Dynamite, it basically, I've never experienced anything like the TV rundown they provided this week. Like it was an out of body experience like that too. And it was as the show went along, you realize what was coming together. So like for FTR jumping Sting, he was like, oh my God, they're going to do that match. They're insane.
Yeah.
God, it rolled so much, man.
I know, right? Because like even still, I kind of somewhat had a little bit of the same feeling. I think what put me in a good place about it all was honestly when the story broke that Bryan was going to be at All Out, because the original rumor was that he's going to debut at Arthur Ashe, and there was a lot of speculation about how, are they just afraid that Arthur Ashe isn't going to happen? Is that what's going on? And I thought, no, I don't think that's the case. Like, keeping in mind, Bryan Danielson, all-time favorite wrestler, and knowing what I know about Bryan, I thought, and sure enough, he's confirmed it's true, but Bryan is a pro wrestler, and the thing he loves more than anything else is wrestling. And if he knows he's going to be in front of AEW's largest audience possible, he's not going to come to do that to do a promo. He wants to have the best match possible. And so when that rumor hit, my immediate thought was, Bryan's wrestling at Arthur Ashe. The question is just who? And if he's going to be wrestling at Arthur Ashe, it has to be the biggest match possible. And initially, on this very show, I convinced myself, probably like somebody like Nick Jackson was what I said. I was like, if he's going to start with the Elite, he could probably start on the lower rung, but still do something cool. But the fact that they were just like, nope, Kenny, it's just Kenny Omega. And I even respect that they went around the rankings and we're just like, nope, it's non-title, but it's still Kenny. We're doing it. And I was...
It's a special one, right? Even me listening to you laying out, it's like, it's a crazy time. I had resigned myself, and when I say resigned, so I don't even mean a negative way, but I had assumed they were going to do the 8-man tag. So it was going to be Bryan with Christian, Dress Express versus the Elite, and it's like, that sounds great.
It still sounds great.
Yeah. And then when Adam Cole said we're going to do a 6-man next week on Rampage, my mind was like, oh my God, they're going to do Bryan and Kenny. And I love the way they did it, as you said, the non-title, just the idea that you kind of feed into what the audience sees it as, which is the ultimate exhibition to the great professional. Like, that's the way they're kind of, even though there's a conflict here, that's kind of the idea, right? Like, forget the title. This is about two of the great pro wrestlers ever, frankly, just in the same ring at Arthur Ashe Stadium. And like, I think AEW is such a, it so often is like a reminder of just how simple this stuff can be, man. Especially because if you're building something we want to see, man, we'll happily go along for the ride on this stuff, And that's what this show, the story of this show. I mean, there's so much stuff so much meat on the bone with the Arthur Ashe, but that is obviously the match. That's an all-timer.
Yeah, I am. Honestly, if they announced nothing else, and then the fact that like last night they announced the what was it?
The Lights Out?
The Lights Out match. Yeah. Well, when they announced the Lights Out match, I mind blown, right? Because at that point I thought I was satisfied with everything they had going into Arthur Ashe, going into the Grand Slam. But I knew that there had to be at least 3 more matches because they announced a 2-hour Rampage and they'd only announced 3 matches, and their average 2-hour show has 6 matches. And so I was like, there still has to be 3 matches. But at this point, with what you've got, I'm good. And then they threw those other 3 on there. And a Lights Out match? Well, are you kidding me? Like, I'm just so excited.
It's such a it's so dumb to me that this like blew my mind, but I'll be honest, it did. The idea of just treating it as it's a 4-hour pay-per-view we're going to split in half for television is like the best use of a great setting
Yes.
I can recall him. But when I say it, it sounds very simple, right? But like, it kind of feels like a novel deal we've got here. This feels like a one-off in recent wrestling memory, at least. It's a TV. Let's be honest, I don't think I'm getting ahead of myself in saying that, like, when people reflect on this time in wrestling, and it's a fun time, they're probably going to have the Arthur Ashe visual in their head. This show would have to have a lot of issues for it not to be remembered forever. Let's be real. They've got so many can't miss matches. But one thing that interests me, I'm interested where you're at on this, Will, is someone said, I think maybe on the chat in our show, it was like opening with Bryan and Omega. And I initially, my reaction was, but then what follows it? And it's like, you could main event with Sting, you could main event with Brit. How would you feel if, Dynamite plays the music?
That's what I want, honestly. Yes. I feel like if I can get in fantasy booker mode, to me, I want to see it open. And the reason I want to see it open is because I know the format of Dynamite. And Dynamite's format usually is that they don't take their first commercial break until about the 25-minute mark. So that tells me that, the first match never has a commercial break. And so thinking about what match on that card would I want to see not interrupted, and that's the one I want to see go straight through. So I would say, yes, open with Kenny and Bryan Danielson. Also, I don't want to see that match have a finish. I know that's weird because, ideally, I want to see everything finish. I want to see a definitive ending, but not this one yet, because I feel like with both of them talking so cocky, do I want to see either of them get checked yet? Because Danielson he's come in more aggressive than he's ever been. And it's almost like a weird contrast because when I watched the promo with him and Kenny on Wednesday, I was like, I need to just remember where he was when he left WWE. So I went and watched the last promo with him and Roman, and it's like night and day. Like, he is just coming with this fire and aggression and like, I know I'm the best in the world. And it's almost like he's never come with that pretty much at any point in WWE. I just never saw that of him. But this is a character that probably shouldn't be checked yet because he's I think he needs to, I think the character doesn't necessarily need to be checked in a sense of being humbled, but it needs to be checked in a sense of understanding how good Kenny is. And Kenny on the same front, he's a heel. He kind of have to get checked like that. So what I want to see ideally is just a really good barn burning match that they announce the usual 20-minute time limit that goes to the 20-minute time limit. And by the end of it, because there's a difference between the disqualification and the time limit draw. I feel Absolutely. Like disqualification kind of cheats you out of like what we thought we were getting. Whereas like a time limit is just like they went the distance. They got as far as this match was going to go under the circumstances that were put in front of them. And therefore that's the match. And
I like that. Yeah, I'm with that. Especially if it's opening. If it's main event and you do the draw, I think I don't want to say put yourself in risk, but I do think it can fail to have that kind of pack the punch it could, as a episode of TV. I will say though, my prediction remains. I think there's something to how much Bryan has ignored like the other elite members.
Yes.
And I think they're going to him and Adam Cole. So my prediction, and this is just, I don't know, I'm actually, you kind of talked me into the draw there, but my prediction is still, I think the finish will be Adam Cole costing Bryan in some way, and then they'll pivot into that as the full gear match. That's my assumption. I don't know, but I could just see that being a thing.
There's one person that I think will be involved in all of this. I think it'll be a post-match thing. But the second that Hangman music hits, I think the crowd is also going to lose it. But I think that happens post-match. I don't know if they're going to Cole and Bryan or I feel like the one person that Cole has constantly talked up is Christian Cage. And it feels like, especially with the verbal barbs on Dynamite that they were kind of throwing out there and Christian throwing those out. I could maybe see that first, but I don't know. I have no idea.
That's the beauty of it, right?
I'm just excited. Like the card just looks good. It looks, I know that's a word that gets thrown out a lot, is stacked, but this is one of those cases where I genuinely feel You know what's crazy though is so talking about this week's Dynamite, because we did RBR on Tuesday, so I haven't had a chance to. This is the first chance I've had to talk about Dynamite at all this week. Talking about that show, what was so interesting was so this show was at the Prudential Center, and really quick, I want to bring up Antox. Said a reminder that AEW got 3 appearances and 2 matches out of Minoru Suzuki. All have been all because of a snafu, and one guy's overreaction on Twitter turned into a meme.
So I think just quickly to hit, because this is an interesting thing that we've been debating a little bit. I think he was supposed to come back with Archer to beat up the Men of the Year, and probably Dan Lambert, and they was like, let's just do Mox and Kingston.
Yeah, well, and it's clear that like they definitely pivoted because Kingston was clearly supposed to still be involved with Miro, and now they've just gone full forward with Miro and Sammy. And the Mixler chat has asked a couple of questions. They said, "Hey, Will, is OC and Matt Hardy hair versus hair going to happen there?" I don't think so. If anything, I think that goes to the next week. Yes. Because the shows we're getting coming up outside of Arthur Ashe are all shows that were rescheduled. These are all shows that people have had tickets to for a really long time. Like the show that aired this week was at the Prudential Center, and that was supposed to be Blood and Guts. This was the original Blood and Guts show. And I was worried about this because of the fact that this was originally AEW's biggest gate, and it's crazy that now it's like the third. But this was originally when the tickets sold. It was like, oh my God, this is their biggest gate ever. This is the biggest crowd AEW will have had. And they're going to do Blood and Guts in front of this massive crowd. And then as we got closer to it, as they sold all those Arthur Ashe tickets, as they sold the first dance out, then it was like, oh, this is cool, but it's not Arthur Ashe. And so that like changed a lot. That changed everything. And so as the card was coming together for this show, a lot of people were like, hey, we were originally the big AEW crowd, and we were supposed to get like the big matches, and instead you're giving us Frankie Kazarian versus Adam Cole. And like, I like Frankie Kazarian, but I recognize what people were seeing in that match. And I saw just people kind of downing on the card a little bit. And I had worries that the crowd was going to be pissed off with having bought tickets for Blood and Guts and ending up with 2.0 versus Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley as the main event. But I think where the show turned things around is that this was pretty much like an all-around hype show for Arthur Ashe. And the way it did it, I think kept people really, really engaged.
Yeah.
And because like the show, of course, had Adam Cole versus Frankie Kazarian in the first match. And like Frankie Kazarian is such a good hand to have for, he's not a guy that they're necessarily going to. And, sorry, I'm going to bring this up really quick because this is the second time this has happened to me. Doing the show on Saturdays, in case you people can hear the Zoom sounds going off for whatever reason, because it happened 2 weeks ago. My job is just deciding to ping me, and I'm not on call today, by the way, but to ping me about various things. And like, technically, I don't have to respond to this till the show's over, but I at least want my Zoom sounds to stop going off, so I am going to mute that. But anyway, yeah, Frankie is such a good hand. Like when Christian came in and the question was, who's Christian going to have his first match against? Like Frankie was a great go-to for that. He's not necessarily a guy that people believe are going to win, which Paul brought up makes him kind of an ineffective elite hunter. But as far as the actual use of him is concerned, if you want to have a great match for somebody and you want to debut somebody well, like Frankie is a great pick for that. And I thought that Adam Cole was good. I liked it. I liked how over Cole was when that music hit and the crowd lost it. and there were Adam Cole signs and Bay signs, and people are loving the music. I can't believe, the AEW themes, the AEW music YouTube channel only has 2 videos that went over 1 million views, and it's Adam Cole's theme and CM Punk's theme.
Wow.
Which, like, CM Punk is Cult of Personality.
Yeah.
Like, literally 1 million other YouTube uploads you can find that on. I'm shocked that one's over 1 million views. But Adam Cole's theme, like, a lot of people are listening to it and a lot of people like it. And it just dropped on iTunes and whatnot yesterday.
It's wild because we did like a pre-Dynamite show. I'm going to be honest, you as a big fan of AEW, I was a little bit anxious about the show also. Not for the crowd being angry, but I'll be like, I kind of got some heat for this, but this was my genuine take. Since Rampage has become a thing, my enjoyment of Dynamite has taken like a minor step down. So like right before, I would have said it was a consistent 8, 9 out of 10, and it had become a 7. And people got really mad because they thought I was being like I was hating, but I was just saying I think it's been less great, which is like, that's not an insult, right? It is what it is. And I looked at this lineup and I was like, man, this feels like another case where Dynamite's just not going to be what it was. This to me was peak Dynamite in the sense that if you asked me what the best match or segment was, I'd have been like, I don't know, man, just watch the 2 hours. It's incredible. Like, there's so much going on. You're an hour into the thing. CM Punk just got laid out, and Excalibur's like, we send you now to the Gun Club. It's like, this show is insane. And I mean that. It's got a charm to it. Like, I love how all over the place. Yeah, it's hectic. It's chaos. It isn't perfect in the sense that, so you send Suzuki and Archer out there for the brawl. And if that was on another TV show, it would have had this big punctuation point. They would have had this big, he puts him through the table. No, man, they just got fought a bit, and Jim Ross was like, we're out of time. Please watch next week. Like, it's just, I thought the energy of this week's Dynamite was great. It's my favorite episode of Dynamite for a while. I have to be honest. And I loved it.
It had some great energy. And like, I mean, I've seen people dropping jokes on the Undisputed Era. To quote an Anthony Scatz gag, he said the Undisputed Era is officially disputed because, like, the way Cole's kind of come in has been a very, like, the last 4 years kind of didn't happen. I'm just like back where I was, because like he comes in and announces a 6-man tag and he says the Super Click is back, baby, and people got excited for that. We're gonna see the Super Click versus Christian Cage and Jurassic Express. And Christian had his backstage segment, and he took a couple of shots at Adam Cole. One about having been in developmental, and the second one about losing the Wednesday Night War. And I don't know. I thought they were fun digs. Who cares?
I did too. It's interesting on that point about the last 4 years. I was thinking about this a lot with Gargano, with the news about Johnny Gargano. I was thinking, I loved what NXT was at its best because I just like wrestling in a nice, confined setting, and I love the studio deal. I do like it, but I have to, I'm not deluded. Like, when you see Adam Cole in this setting, there is a part of me that thinks the same thing would happen with Gargano, where all of the naysayers would see him on Dynamite having a 15-minute opener, rocking the place, and would be like, actually, he's good, and I don't know if that's an indictment on NXT or just a reality of their situations. Like, where are you at on? It feels like that's a real thing, right? And I'm not a huge Adam Cole fan, but you put him on AEW TV and he feels like the biggest star in wrestling. Like, it's insane.
That's crazy. Yeah, he does. And I don't know where I'm at with Gargano in that. I will say the most fun match I've witnessed live was probably Gargano versus Adam Cole, and so in Brooklyn. So on that side of it, I'm like, I don't know that Gargano in this setting, because the way somebody put it was weekly Dynamites feel like a weekly takeover when you think about just the way the crowds are and all of that. And so in that sense, I'm like, I actually could have fun with that. And then on the other end, I don't know. I don't know what to expect out of Gargano if he does choose to leave. And so this is another thing I want to talk about, and I'm going to steal one of Josh Swallow's points from the RBR neighborhood. So talking about the MJF segment, where he comes out and cuts the promo on Brian Pillman Jr. and talks to Brian Pillman in hell. Somebody asked, does it feel like MJF is being de-pushed because of the fact that he's in because of the fact that he is feuding with Brian Pillman Jr. right now. And I initially felt like I've always felt no, but the way Josh put it, and to steal his point, Josh said that MJF punching down on somebody actually amplifies who we thought MJF was this entire time, which is that like Brian Pillman isn't somebody that he should be doing this to. Like you would think it would be somebody that it would be like a main event type guy, but the fact that he's like punching down on Brian Pillman Jr. actually amplifies MJF as somebody MJF is. But before we continue, I want to give room to our caller, Mac from Brooklyn. What's up, Mac? Oh, hold on, Mac. I just realized that you are muted. So give me just a second because my computer restarted. So all of my settings reset. So if you are talking, no one can hear you. Go ahead, Mac.
I was saying that I went to Dynamite on Wednesday.
Nice.
Great show. My first, it was like really my third wrestling like live show ever. First AEW show. The crowd was amazing. Everybody was pretty much in from the start, from Elevation all the way to Rampage. I'm definitely thinking about, buying a last minute ticket like I did for Dynamite Wednesday for Grand Slam. My only concern is that it's going to be 2 hours because getting home from Newark, that's one thing. From Flushing, or on the train going back to Brooklyn, that's like a 2-hour trip. I definitely got to work in the morning.
Yeah.
But I felt like it built definitely to the show. It was like pretty much a go home show for Grand Slam. I felt like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, did you have fun? Because I always you mentioned this was you said your third wrestling show? Third, okay.
Live.
So one thing that I've personally felt when I talked to, because I've been to now, I can't believe I could say this in 6 years, because it's only been, in 2 years, because AEW's only been around 2 years, but I've been to 6 AEW shows. Like Arthur Ashe will be my 7th. But I've also been to, by comparison, like 31 WWE shows. So I have a lot of shows we could put in there. But having been to so many between WWE and AEW, I always like to ask people how they feel their experience compared. Because one of the things I do appreciate about AEW is, I guess, as a thing people kind of use as a fault against them, they have picked up a lot of ex-WWE people, but people you don't know that are ex-WWE people, like their event coordinator is WWE's event coordinator of like 7 years. And like their event producer, like the person who produces their live events, was WWE's for a really long time. So like they picked up a lot of those experienced people. And so I'm curious, how did you feel the experience compared?
Well, the only WWE show I went to was the SmackDown after WrestleMania when Kofi won. So it was pretty electric for that. It was pretty much the last. It was the last day of the WrestleMania experience. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of not your regular, just regular Raw or SmackDown. But I felt like between that and AEW on Wednesday, I felt like I had a much better time at AEW on Wednesday. I had like much better seats. I guess that kind of played into it. I didn't get to sit with my friends because they had tickets all the way back from when the show was originally supposed to be in March 2020. So, I had to sit with them for Dynamite. So for Rampage. But I felt like, interactions, things like that, it felt like when I went to go see All Out in the bar, kind of. And I wasn't expecting that, just because, you go to the show, you expecting kind of be by yourself. But there was a lot more interaction. I pretty much heard Adam Cole, baby, all the way from Newark, all the way to the A train back in Manhattan.
Nice.
Like over and over and over again. So, it felt like a much hyper crowd. It felt like a much more connected community with AEW versus WWE.
So I'm the odd man out here because I haven't been to an AEW show for obvious reasons, right? But the word that always comes to mind watching from home is there is a sense of optimism to the experience of watching AEW, whether it's live, whether it's with your friends at home, whether it's at a bar. There's this sense that like people are there to have a good time. Now, before I go, this is not me saying it's the opposite of WWE, but there is almost a caution with people having fun at WWE shows. Does that make sense? This idea that I don't want to give them my whole heart. With AEW, it feels a lot more kind of full-fledged to me. If people just go there and just want to have fun.
We actually lost him.
Oh.
Yeah,
you got my point, right? Well,
you're talking. We lost our call.
Is that fair to say, though? You know, the optimism deal?
Yeah. Well, like, I think it's more so, especially for like those post WrestleMania crowds, because there you're dealing with, you know, what they'll call like a smart audience, I guess. I don't know what that is anymore, but I will say that. Oh, here's my brother-in-law making his cameo again, as he does. But anyway, I feel like part of it is the fact that WWE has a bit of an adversarial relationship with that audience, and so when that audience gets in front of WWE television, they're like, "All right, you know, we're ready to send a message to Vince, you know." The message we want to like, they're there to almost, that's what I'll say, to send a message to the company. Whereas on the other end, I feel like just the AEW's audience isn't there. They're not necessarily there to send a message. The message they want to send is, we're here to cheer these guys.
And that's earned, to be clear. Like, that's very much, as you said, you laid out perfectly. That is not a coincidence. That's a result of many, but it is something that stands out to me, that kind of sense of. Now, what's interesting, and you probably have a better read on this than anyone. You've been to a lot of WWE shows. I don't know when the last time you went was, but I'm always intrigued by this growing idea that the WWE crowds have changed somewhat since AEW's arrival. Meaning, it appears to me when they went to Chicago most recently, there was some CM Punk chants, and I know they sweetened the crowds, but it does feel to me like there's a growing portion of the audience that's just like, I'm cool, I won't go. And is that a thing? Do you think that's an AEW thing? Where they're like, we have a promotion we enjoy, leave it.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest proof of that is, have you looked at the Long Island sales?
Yes. Yeah.
It's I feel like that's like the biggest apples to apples like demand argument that's ever been made, because you've seen the debates on Twitter of like, with the demo victory for AEW, and then the question of, well, they're not on the same nights. Like, you can't really compare, right? But like, the one thing you absolutely can compare is that they are both companies running UBS Arena, a brand new arena. So like, it's the newest arena in America. It's supposed to be fully state of the art. It's supposed to be one of the best experiences they say you can have in an arena. They've talked up the fact that the arena is going to be fully powered by renewable energy within by like 2024, and like, it's a really state of the art arena in Long Island. And both AEW and WWE wanted to get in on the ground floor. The arena doesn't even open till November. WWE is actually the first non-hockey event at the arena. And WWE hits there, I believe, November 29th. And AEW is there 9 days later on December 8th. And ticket sales, it's like 5-1. In that, I believe as of right now, WWE hasn't even sold 1,000 tickets for it yet. AEW sold like 5,000 tickets for theirs. And it's the exact same venue, the exact same setup, and just in the same area. The fact that the demand is higher for an AEW event right now than Raw, and this isn't like a house show. It's Raw. It's Raw and Dynamite, 9 days apart from each other, and the sales are, and it's a different sales strategy though. The AEW is like, we're going to sell on social media, which when you sell on social media, you're getting the audience that comes with social media. Whereas WWE is more like, let's sell locally, let's do local advertising, let's do, ads on TV and whatnot. And it does definitely bring a different type of audience when you do that. But again, this is like a true apples to apples comparison.
Yeah.
And
I'm fascinated by just you mentioned the kind of the ongoing like counter argument, right? It's like, they win the demo and it's, well, Monday football and all that good stuff.
Right.
How far are these goalposts going to move, Will? Am I going to be coming back on this show in a year and they're going to be beating them in the viewership and people will go, yeah, but, it's 3 hours, so you have to get, like, I just, look, we all agree being on Mondays should be on Wednesday. You don't need to be at next to explain to us, right? We understand.
Mhm.
But it feels lost on some folks that are peers of ours. Like, AEW's 2 years old, guys.
Yeah. Like, the fact is, it is absolutely a point that regardless of whether you say it's the NFL, they're on different days of the week, whatever. The fact is, there is, because I don't think it's something that should be like sat and debated and all of that stuff. None of that matters. It's just the fact that a 2-year-old company can stand up and go, we have the #1 wrestling show on cable TV 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
That's it. There's nothing else that needs to be said there. Like, the fact that can be said for a 2-year-old wrestling company.
Exactly.
Like WWE at 2 years, obviously way different time, but okay, let's take a step back because I'm not going to go there. WCW at 2 years was not there. WCW got there, and it was still impressive that WCW built up over time as the acquisitions took place. And but I'm talking strictly WCW as a new brand in the late 80s as they got there. And just taking a look at some of the chat messages, Evan Wright talking about, but it's different days. You can't compare, of course, using quotes, because and TNA never got there. I mean, TNA was their own worst enemy. I one day want to do an entire just like podcast breakdown on.
Please get me on
TNA. Like, it's something I've always wanted to do on, like, because it's weird. I'm talking about a company that still exists, but I still want to do like a post-mortem on TNA. Like, what exactly did they miss and get wrong? Because there's a lot of things that they missed that were kind of in their lap, and and people that watch The Distraction again be like, oh God, Joe's going there again. So I apologize, folks. But the TNA thing fascinates me because don't we both know that the general perception is they were rolling and then Hogan and Bischoff came in, and it's like, that was very much Dixie, like rolling the dice, because they just wasn't really growing. Like, if you look at I mean, seriously, look at AEW's pay-per-view buys since it's 2 years. TNA were having like 1.5 million viewers and translating to 12,000, 10,000 pay-per-view buys. Now, I get they had one every month, but good Lord, 12,000, 10,000, insane. The thing about the TNA that I think people miss when because I've seen the points brought in of like, yeah, AEW is bringing in Bryan Danielson, they brought in CM Punk, but like TNA brought in Hogan and Nash and and Kurt Angle and all these stars. So like, and those are bigger stars than AEW ever brought in. Here's the difference. And this is somebody who not only lived through all of that, but podcasted through all of that. I did shows about all of this stuff at the time. The mentality around all of that in TNA at the time was, with each thing TNA brought in, it was supposed to fix whatever the problem was in TNA. Everything was supposed to be a fix. Kurt Angle coming in was like, this show really sucks, but man, when Kurt Angle gets there, this is going to be really great. Hogan and Bischoff were brought in to revamp the show. It was
It
wasn't Hogan and Bischoff coming in because this promotion's so hot that they have to be there. This show is floundering again. It needs Eric Bischoff and Hogan to turn things around. Nothing TNA ever got was because of how hot it was. It was always to repair it. And it was always to fix it. It was always to change the perception of TNA. But it was never because TNA was a hot product. And that's the difference between CM Punk coming here because it's a hot product and Hogan coming in because it's not a hot product, but they think it can become one. And like,
also just watch the shows, man. Right? I mean, I know that's an easy, like, guys, a lot of TNA's like golden era was in the Impact Zone, and like, yeah, those fans, bless them, they did their best. How can you compare that to some of the stuff we're seeing at AEW as of late, man? Like, I know it's dismissive, and I don't mean it that way. Bless TNA, they tried their best, and they shot themselves in the foot an awful lot. I'm glad they can still walk, but good lord, man, it ain't the same thing. And if you watch those shows, you watch Dynamite now, you'll know that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think it is just there is a big difference between the two. I guess just a little bit more with Dynamite. So yeah, I like the MJF segment. I think it was weird and probably a mistake that they played the Brian Pillman promo after. I think that should have gone before, and I think that was just things kind of out of order on that show. And you know what? I should probably have results because I'm like trying to do all of this from memory.
Out of interest, why you pull that? Where are you at on Pillman as a singles? I'm not huge on him personally. I kind of think this is a deal where CM Punk has convinced Tony Khan that he's very good, which we'll see about that. I don't know. Where are you at on him thus far? This little project.
I don't think it's just CM Punk. I think a lot of people like Brian Pillman. You hear it from so many guys in the back that they see just potential in Brian Pillman. And granted, I don't know what that is, but I also listen to like other podcasts where hosted by wrestlers, and the wrestlers go like, yeah, Brian Pillman, he's gonna be a star. That guy looks like a star. I thought, really, like the mullet, like that's for you. Okay,
I don't get it, and I'm like, I've had the same experience you where it's like, am I missing something? I was intrigued with yes, there you go.
So and then there was the Dante Martin and Matt Sydal versus FTR. Again, FTR is fascinating to me because they've been protected, like really protected, and that to the point of where you kind of see a lot of FTR fans a little bit upset that they're not used as much as they could be. Whereas I recognize what it is with FTR. FTR is one of those cases where they very much see both of them as like a top tier tag team, but FTR not in a position to be tag team champions right now when there are other guys that should be tag team champions. And the issue is when you have a system in place that is designed to get people to tag team championship victories, it's like, how do we keep FTR away from the tag titles, but also not have them lose? And so like the only way you can do that is to put them in situations where they're not necessarily competing in tag action. Like you had FTR, you had Dax Harwood have that great match with Jungle Boy. They've been in a lot of like multi-person matches where they had the tag match with Shawn Spears that like wouldn't count toward tag victories, and it like essentially keeps them away from the tag titles. Because if you were to ask me what team should be tag champions, not them. That's my answer. Like I don't think, but also you don't want to do the Bucks rematch either. Like there's a lot of factors, but they've been like protected really well. I do think that they're probably headed toward the Lucha Bros now. But in the meantime, I don't know. I feel like they are extremely protected, but also another protected person is Dante Martin. They have, he gets put out there to just look excellent and just get the crowd going, and he always does.
Oh, he's great. Yeah, quickly on FTR, because this is something I've been thinking about a lot recently, because I'm a huge fan of this. Okay, now if you ask me my favorite AEW tag team, if all things are equal, it's probably them. I don't think they're the best tag team in AEW. They're just my particular, like, personal taste-wise, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think they've been very good, and I love that they're wrestling Sting next week. That's just hilarious to me. I love it. I don't think they are as perfectly suited to the AEW. This is not a phrase I like. I'm going to use it. House style, as I in my brain thought before they got there. And what I mean by that is, I like their match with Santana and Ortiz. In that setting, I think they're objectively like more exciting matches out there. Mm-hmm. Now, this is very, again, I say this with like a heavy heart because I love these guys, but like Santana and Ortiz versus the Lucha Bros would get over more in front of an AEW audience, especially, and the kind of match they'd have, than I think FTR versus either of those teams. Now, that's not an insult. They're two great teams also, right? But I think we're in a position where, and Evan talks about, the tag team depth. Like, it's not an insult. I just don't think they're as good as the Young Bucks, man. And if they were listening to this, they would block me, so all how I get it. Like the versatility that the Bucks showed as champions, okay? I think they would have had great matches with King and Moxley, and they would have great matches with a lot of those teams, but I don't think they would have had the television range or have been exciting as the Young Bucks, you know? And that's not an insult. I think the Young Bucks could be the greatest team ever. But do you think there's something to that? Like, they still don't feel completely at home to me stylistically, which is weird because I thought the contrast would make it better. I don't know. I'm playing for this a little bit recently.
Yeah, no, okay. That's I hadn't thought about that as far as feeling at home. Because I do like FTR as well. And I think when FTR has delivered, they have delivered. But I do think that where FTR delivers is with teams like my favorite FTR matches have been with guys like Jurassic Express, with the Young Bucks themselves, with the Lucha Bros. They actually did have a great match with the Lucha Bros. And I would love to see them revisit that with the play off the ending of the last match. Where remember Dax Harwood ripped off Rey Fenix's mask and then rolled him up for a victory. And I would love to see something silly they did that, didn't they? I was like, WWE did that once where Rey Mysterio wore two masks and Chris Jericho snatched off Rey's mask and then looked at him and he still had a mask on. And so maybe don't do that because that's already been done, but do something fun to play off of that idea of we saw that coming because we knew that that's what you're going to go for. And I don't know. I think that FTR is. I still think they're in a better position than they were because they're just in a place with more depth. Yeah. But yeah, they're definitely not the standout act that I think everybody thought they would be, simply because there's much more exciting stuff out there.
Yeah, and that's fine, right? If you're on I always use the dumb sports comparison of if you're on a championship team, you may take less shots. It doesn't mean you're not good. It means there's other players out there. Like, I don't mean it as an insult to them. It's just, let's be honest, this is the most stacked tag division in recent memory. And with that comes a situation where there are going to be teams you could build divisions around that ain't getting divisions built around them. I think Santana and Ortiz, I love those guys. Like, them not being champs says a lot about the division, right? Like, there's a lot going on there. So it's just different things to fit in. But again, I say all of that with complete full disclosure that I am so pumped to see them get some heat on Darby and then feed a Sting hot tail. I can't wait for that. I'm so fired up that match.
Oh, me too. I'm really excited for that. So really the only other things I wanted to touch on from Dynamite were the Jade Cargill had her longest match ever. And I like that Layla Hirsch was kind of the one to take her a little bit further than she's ever been. So that was cool. There wasn't much else to talk about there other than the fact that I am intrigued by the fact that there's now multiple women's angles going on in the company. That, one of the biggest things that people talk about is that beyond just like match times and things like that, because AEW actually does give women's matches a decent amount of time. They just only give them one. But the idea that AEW doesn't necessarily ever run women's programs outside of the title picture. And so this is kind of the first time that we're seeing like multiple things happening within the women's division. And there's only one thing centering around the women's title. But other than that, everything else that's happening is happening outside of it. Like you have Nyla Rose and Jade Cargill have their thing brewing. You have the Bunny and Penelope Ford versus Andrade and
I thought they were going to do the tag next week, but the fact they're doing another singles, they're going to extend that even further, right? So,
continue to extend that, and then you have the women's title picture.
Right. Where are you at? You mentioned FTR. You mentioned that the problem of not having them win enough that they have to be fighting for the belts. That rankings dilemma. Right. Where are you at on that with Jade? Which is starting to worry me a lot.
Really well. So the cool thing again is the way that Mark Sterling continues to put it is that we will go after the title when we want to. So it becomes a case of you can almost promote this as like it's Jade's title when she chooses. And so if she chooses to stay at bay because she doesn't feel like she wants to yet, but the second she does, you guys are in trouble. Like, that's a good angle to play it at. And you can continue to do that, continue to have her win, but she is ultimately choosing not to exercise her right to go after the title.
I like that, actually. With her, it's a thing of we all get the raw ingredients, right? Looks like Star has this presence. It's getting her to a point where you don't expose her in a way. Like, I thought the Layla match, the first time I watched it, I didn't like it much at all. I rewatched it, I was higher on it. I'm sorry if you can hear this sound, folks. Neighbors, baby screaming. I'm sorry, but there are signs to me that like they need to be careful with it. You know, like her selling on Wednesday, and again, it's not a big deal. Man, she's a rookie. You know, like she's this isn't me.
Absolutely, people like her first match was in February. Like this isn't
so it makes sense that she has holes in her game, right? Like it's that situation of how do we make her a star and not kind of just make her another part of the roster without putting her in a position to foul. Mm-hmm. That's always balancing out with these things, and that was the problem you're always going to run into when you debuted her with Shaq. Like you bring her in at this, you know. Layla is great. I really would have been tempted. I tweeted about this. Well, I really would have been tempted to have Layla upset her. I really would.
I would have too. I was thinking AEW is really good about hometown stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like that was exactly why Tony Khan tweeted what he did last week about how like hometown people aren't always going to win like temporary expectations because we may have one coming up real soon where they're not going to.
I think Kingston may fit that too. I don't know if Suzuki's losing twice.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see, do you want to be Archer there? Who wins that match? The lights out deal. How do you do that?
I don't know. I mean, the cool thing is wins and losses matter. And in this case, this one won't count.
Yeah.
But so there's a lot you can do there. I have no idea. And the beauty is it's going to close out too. That's the last match we're getting of the entire night. And I don't know. The Bryan Danielson Kenny Omega segment, God, I feel like I don't know what it was, but something was just clicking with Kenny as far as like his demeanor, his look, like to the point of where when he had that stare down with Bryan, and like this, when I feel like we throw the term dream match around a lot and somewhat loosely over the last few years. But this was a match that for years I was literally dreaming about. This was a match that I used to come up with scenarios with. I tweeted a poll out about a year ago of like, if we were to ever see Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega, where does it occur? And I said, does it occur in WWE? Do they somehow meet in Japan? Or would they meet in AEW? Where do you think this match occurs? And I put the final option, the match never happens. And the option that won the poll was the match never happens. Like it was literally a dream match. If people were like, I don't see a scenario where Bryan Danielson ever faces Kenny Omega. Not again. And not as these two guys. And so like, this is a match where I always wanted to see it. And I wanted to see it with the best bout machine versus, Bryan, who's been at the top of the wrestling industry, his main event at WrestleMania. Like, this is what I've wanted to see for a long time. And when that stare down happened, I thought, it's happening. This is it. We're actually getting Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega.
It's crazy too, because this is the luxury of having the roster they have, which is like an all-time great roster.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're obviously going to run this back for the belt, whether it's at Full Gear or next year. Like they're going to do it for something, not even for the belt, just they're going to do it again, right? It's not going to be a one-off. But you can basically burn this match knowing that in your back pocket you've got you can do Omega and Punk as a major program at any point. That's a huge deal, right? You're obviously eventually going to build to Cole and Omega in some form or fashion. Another one that could last 3 to 6 months as a program.
Yes.
Either certain current WWE main eventers' contract indeed expires when we believe it expires and he heads over to AEW. I think he's an inevitable Omega match, right? Absolutely. I mean, this is when and I know there's been lots about hot shotting and bless those people, but in truth, this is why you pay the big bucks to talent level they've got, because you can actually do like this match you just built up perfectly into how great a dream match is, and I agree with everything you said. They can really just be like, yeah, we're going to do it on TV, and we've got like 5 other great Kenny matches in our back pocket. Like, incredible. It's awesome, man. It really is refreshing. Like they've got themselves in a position where they can't lose almost. They've got so many great pieces at play. Just pick which one you want. It's fine.
So exciting. Yeah, I was over the moon by the time the segment ended, and I was like nudging my wife. I'm like, this is the thing I'm going to go to next week, and I'm going to see a match that, and again, I just trust it. I just bought these tickets thinking I just want to see a cool setting. Not I want to see a match between my all-time favorite wrestler and a guy I truly do consider the best in the business right now. And I'm just going to get to see that in person. I am just, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is actually happening. Rob in the chat brought up Phoenix versus Bryan. How do you feel about that? Are you kidding me? That's
Phoenix versus anyone, Bryan versus anyone. You put them together, it's outrageous, right? Incredible mix. I think Bryan's got a bloodbath in him against Penta, though, which he's definitely going to find a way to do, and it's going to rule so much, Like I can see that too. So it's Bryan, man. I'll see him wrestle anyone. Same with Phoenix.
Yeah, we are all already. I'm sorry. I don't mean to put this out there as lot. I just took a chance because I get shit for buying tickets to events because it's my hobby and I have fun with going to pro wrestling shows. And I will say though that my travel is officially not nearly as agonizing as I thought it was going to be. So I think I said on the show that the plan was to just land in Queens, go to the event, and then head back to the airport. And I recognized that was going to be a very obnoxious way to try to travel. Thank you, Big. But Anthony Scatz let me know that he's also going, and I think he posted that, and we talked about it, and he was like, hey, I want to split a hotel. And I was like, actually, that sounds like a great idea because I'm going to be exhausted as hell. And then also, where was I going to put my stuff if I did what I was going to do? And so, yes, Scotts and I, we got a hotel, and it's in Queens. And so this works out much better, and I'm much happier than what I was going to attempt to do, which is just wing it. So I am very happy with that. And then on the other end of things, there was Rampage, which saw the Butcher and the Blade take on the tag champions, the Lucha Bros. And Rampage is kind of a backward show in the sense, and I get why it is. Just in the sense that the most watched portion of the show tends to be the opener, and because of that, the main event, as it were, tends to be the first match on Rampage, not the last. And that I feel like that's very much what we got here out of the Lucha Bros. I feel like just them having their first tag title defense felt like a bigger deal than anything else.
I think Rampage, and this may be a criticism to some, it's a feature more than it is a flaw for me personally, but I think it's quickly becoming if there was an hour in between the first and second of Dynamite, if you could cushion an extra hour of Dynamite in there to let things breathe a little bit, that's what this is. None of us want Dynamite to be 3 hours though, so this is obviously the best alternative, and Tony Khan said as much. Like, to me, this was a chance to, I think a lot of the stuff that happens on Rampage isn't so much a necessity. It's them taking advantage, again, of how great their roster is. So, like, you get yourself this Lucha Bros tag title defense that, it's maybe I'm wrong, but it's basically a match for the sake of a match. And that's fine, right? I want to see Penta and Phoenix wrestle on television. Fuego and Miro, they run back. You get yourself the extra women's match, which is big time important for that division. Like, that whole Anna Jay, Ty, Penelope Bunny deal is all being helped by the fact there's a second show for them to, tie it together. So
absolutely.
It's like an extension to Dynamite to me. And I know that's how they're taping it right now. And again, some people might say it feels much like a B show. Like, for me, I love that it's just an hour of wrestling. Unfortunately, it's inevitably going to be 2 hours of wrestling by, like, next year. Like, they're going to do that because it's just That's TV. But for now, man, I'm loving just having an hour block of AEW. It's so much fun.
Yeah, and I it's a really digestible show, and it's not like nothing's happening on the show because we get the because we had the opener, which I thought was creative. They had a great ending, I thought, and just I had fun with it, and then of course the other members of the HFO run in, which leads to Santana and Ortiz coming in for the save. And I feel like this hopefully starts planting the seeds of doing Santana and Ortiz versus the Lucha Bros. But for now, we're going to see the 8-man tag, which gets them all 4 of those teams on the show next week. We did have the women's match, which there wasn't much to. There wasn't a whole lot to discuss other than the fact that there's a program here. And the thing I genuinely appreciate about the program is that these teams, at least as somebody who is like way too in the AEW verse of following all the vlogs and stuff, I at least very much appreciate that these are all real life best friends, right? Like we know that Penelope Ford and Bunny are like super tight, that they are best friends, that's a believable friendship, that this doesn't necessarily feel, at least to me, like a thrown together tag team. And then we've seen Anna Jay and Ty Conti be joined at the hip for a year now. So we are seeing 2 sets of friends going at it with each other. And it's believable.
And I think the Bunny is... Look, I know the Bunny has her critics and that's whatever, but like I think she's objectively a good character wrestler. If you give her some sort of personality to like... I mean, look at the difference between like Ali and this character she plays now, right? I think she's helping Penelope in the sense that sometimes with Penelope, I didn't feel like she emoted enough or she had the edge she needed to have. Like she has all the tools, I think, Penelope, right? Like if you said you're like me, you're deep in the vlogverse. She's like so soft spoken and quiet. Sometimes in that first year of Dynamite or so, like her actions would be that of a great villain, but she didn't have the conviction to me that I wanted to see. The Bunny, I think, is bringing it out of her because, as you said, they have that chemistry and they're comfortable around each other. So that's nice to see.
What's also surprising is how much Bunny has been used this year. In that first year, she wasn't really used at all. She had that first match with Brandy, and then she was basically with the Butcher and the Blade, and she wasn't really used much. And then in 2021, she is just, I feel like I have to look this stat up because I may just be talking out of my ass, but is she behind Brit for the most TV matches this year?
She's got to be close. Yeah, I think so.
I feel like she has to be.
Yeah.
Just in terms of, because she keeps getting TV matches. She had, I know she faced Chris Statlander, and she had this mixed tag with her and Blade versus Statlander and Orange Cassidy, and she faced Red Velvet, and she's faced
Ty twice on TV. I think she's faced Ty. She faced Anna Jay obviously last night.
I feel like there's been matches for Bunny this year. So I am curious. I have to look that stat up to be certain. Right. But of course, the segment that had, I think, the most chatter was Ruby Soho and Britt Baker going at it, their verbal joust, throwing some good digs at each other. And of course, it's the first 5 seconds of Big Money match.
How great was it, Will, last night? So obviously he was out there for the first 35 minutes of the show.
Yes.
And the Bunny did her own entrance, obviously, for her match. And you could see that Matt stayed at ringside because he was like, I'm not walking that ramp twice. There's no way. I'm staying here at ringside. She can meet me in the ring. Bless Matt Hardy. By the way, when they do that match, him and Orange, hair versus hair, everyone online is going to go crazy. This is a terrible main event. And it's going to do a great number because all of Matt Hardy's matches do. And it's hair versus hair. Like, let's be honest, man. He's going to make a great meme of him being bald. And it's going to be tremendous. Like, let's not even pretend otherwise. It'll be fun.
I suppose for the sake of this being a Joel Holbert appearance, we'll let him have it. There we go.
I don't know how I feel about that being my brand.
Oh man. So the what else? But yeah, so we had that segment. I thought the digs were really good. I wasn't sure what they were going to be. But I was glad that there was a rebuttal for each one. That I was never a big fan of bringing up Britt Baker's relationship with Adam Cole as a dig without Adam Cole there, because they've done it before in the Big Swole feud. It was brought up, but that's with Adam Cole over on the other channel. When he is backstage, I feel a little bit better about it, because then it's just like, hey, it's just all within the fun of this show. And then I liked Britt's comeback of like, you call yourself the runaway, but you didn't run away from anything. You got fired. And then I liked her comeback of that's very true. But if I hadn't been, it's the best thing that ever happened to me, because it put me right here in AEW in front of all these fans and like turned the negative into a positive. Ultimately, I liked it. I thought this was kind of the verbal joust that, again, the women's division's kind of needed. Only thing I didn't like about it, and I hope one day I get a version without it, was commentary between each remark going, "Oh, this is a great segment." Like, shut the fuck up, Chris.
Yeah. Yes. And then afterwards, he did a line where he was like, "That was a money segment." And I was like, "Oh god, man, this is." But yeah, I'm with you. But I think it was validating, right? As a fan of Ruby, anytime she got a chance to talk, she nailed it in WWE TV, and she just never got a chance to talk. She would cut a great promo, and you wouldn't hear her talk for 6 months, and it's like, that's another talk for another day. But it was just nice to see her prove everyone right that with a brain that she obviously can do this stuff in a major way. I thought she was great in that segment. And as you said, the women's division needs these kind of promo segments. It can't just be Brit talking one way. It has to be a back and forth, it has to be a conflict. So yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, so I was definitely a big fan of that. And then the main event, and I guess for whatever reason, it wasn't clicking with me, but and I don't know why, because duh. But the fact that it's time to do Sammy versus Miro, and this is like the perfect scenario to set that up, because you set up the sympathy for Sammy having somebody he cares very much about, and Miro taking advantage of that. I loved the showdowns with Mark Henry. I'm actually kind of glad that, and it wouldn't surprise me if it was a Mark Henry decision of like, step away from commentary directly, but do these interview segments. Like, I'm at the point where I can absolutely see the crowd catching on to Mark Henry's, looking directly in the camera going, "It's time for the main event."
Apparently that happened. I read someone on social say that the crowd did it with him. So there you go. Maybe someone in the show was there for sure, or I called her or whatever. But I heard that's a thing. That's going to happen. That's awesome.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. It's such a great thing. And I liked, of course, Miro is just the best to me. I just love Miro. His line of "I only serve my God above and my wife below" was so great. And the fact that he didn't care about the car, but he just wants to beat him one more time.
Yeah. Yes, it was. I liked the match. I would have. This has been very nitpicky, but I would have tightened up a little bit. And I say this a lot. Sometimes with AEW, my experience of not having, like, the picture-in-picture for me is still full screen, So that part can sometimes extend stuff for me in a way that probably lessens my enjoyment. I still liked it. I love the Sammy direction. I actually think, I wouldn't do it because I love Miro as much as you, but I would be tempted by Sammy winning the title. I'm going to be honest with you. Like,
I almost tweeted. I thought, you know what? I like Miro as champion, but if there's one kind of like smaller underdog guy that I would have beat him, it would be Sammy Guevara.
Because he's so over, and this beyond, like, I don't want to say he's underutilized, but he hasn't been on TV a bunch as of late, and they love him. The people go crazy for Sammy. I I don't want to derail this any further than I already have, but I must say that my highlight of Rampage was a 30-second segment, which was the Hobbs video package.
Yes, yeah.
Oh my! Dude, he came across like an absolute megastar in that thing, didn't he? Holy shit, it was incredible.
Yeah, no, that was great too. I completely forgot about that. Again, I'm trying to do all this from memory, but and luckily I just happened to just watch it yesterday. So no, CM Punk mentioning his list of guys that he wanted to work with, and some felt outlandish to me. Like I thought, okay, I could see him seeing potential in Hobbs, but like, when is it ever going to happen?
Yeah.
And like, oh, next. That's exactly where it is next. And so I genuinely do see him working through that list of guys that he's talked about because he mentioned Ricky Starks. That's obviously a great next step to go with. And who else did he mention? He mentioned Jungle Boy. Like there's places this can go. And the fact that everybody's going to look better for having been in there with Punk it just feels great. I'm happy. I'm happy for Hobbs, especially because not to remove some of the mystery around Hobbs, I suppose, but that is a man who is very happy to be where he's at right now and is having the time of his life. And just thinking about where he is right now and who he is, and that he would be happy just being on TV, let alone working with CM Punk. Are you kidding me?
At Arthur Ashe Stadium?
At Arthur Ashe Stadium.
No, I was talking about this week, like, as a big fan of his, I'm so excited for him, but I'm fascinated to see what it looks like, because I think if he hits in the way that I believe he can, he will be accelerated even more than he has been in recent. Because it feels to me, since Cage has been taken out of the group, which I think was strategic because I think they want to move Hobbs up.
Yes.
Like, I feel like they've really kind of focusing on this idea that, this guy's serious. He's a player, Well, and that segment said why perfectly.
I kind of feel on the topic of Brian Cage that the members they added to Team Taz somewhat exposed him in that when they first added Ricky Starks, Ricky Starks cut that promo the very next week that was like, oh, damn, well, he's a much more charismatic, much better talker than Brian Cage. So that kind of takes away that factor from Brian Cage. And then they brought in Will Hobbs, and it's like, well, okay, between the two, if I wanted to have a dominating powerhouse wrestler, Hobbs is kind of the guy to me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all the thing I love when Hobbs turned, he kind of tapped into that like Tyson deal, right? The snarl and the way. Remember when he first came out with the Tyson style like towel, and bless Brian Cage, he has never been able to capture that kind of aura, right? He's never had this sense of he's a killer out there. He's a guy that does some cool moves, and he does some awesome stuff. I'm not knocking the guy, but he ain't got that aura of a monster to me. And as you said, Hobbs, he took that away straight away.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to watch SmackDown?
I did, just for you, Will. I tried my best. I don't know, man.
I didn't watch it. And, SmackDown is a show that has a lot going for it. And I absolutely get what the appeal of SmackDown is, because it does appeal to me in a lot of ways. The only things that really hurt me about SmackDown are the amounts of wasted time. And the show does a lot of it. Because SmackDown opened up with the video package recapping Edge and Seth Rollins, and then Roman's music hits, and he starts making his way down to the ring slowly in my least favorite entrance in pro wrestling. But I got encouraged by the fact that I'm like, okay, they're going to show this video package. They showed a recap of what happened the previous week, and I'm like, and he'll already be in the ring, so at least we don't have this Roman Reigns entrance. And then they come back and he's only like halfway down the ramp. And then they're like, and now let's show another video package, and they show that, and they come back and he's still like not in the ring. And I don't know what the need to do this super long entrance is. It's not a bad song as much as it's just there's only 30 seconds of original material in the song. I don't know. Like, this isn't Triple H's theme where it's like a song, but like I don't know. But I will say that I very much like everything going on with Roman having essentially 3 feuds going on right now. He's got Balor on one end, but then he also has Lesnar directly in front of him. But then we brought out Big E because the new WWE champion, Big E, is still a part of SmackDown. And he's at least still there till the draft. And so, but yeah, I liked everything in this promo. And
I did too. This is a very WWE thing here. I'll explain this best I can, and I know you'll understand it because it's so weird, but it's the truth. It's like I'm watching the show, I haven't watched it for a while. I'm not going to be mad at Finn and Big E against the Usos, right? That's just objectively good professional wrestling. I enjoyed the match, and I was like, this is good. And I looked at the time, and it was like the show was 33 minutes in, I think, when that match ended, and I was like, nothing's really been achieved, you know? Like they've just sort of done stuff, right?
Not a whole lot. Like SmackDown doesn't necessarily value its own time very much.
Just fills time. It's just this machine.
A lot of stuff where you look up and you're like, wow, you didn't do much in 40 minutes by the time we got it. I mean, like the fact that 8 minutes in and we were just starting the Roman promo, and I very much wonder what the wisdom is behind that. Genuinely wonder. And yeah, that's how I see that. But yeah, we did get the Usos versus Finn Balor and Big E. Not much of a win-win situation here because the Usos are the tag champs. And Big E is the WWE champion, and Finn Balor is the number 1 contender. So at some point, somebody who shouldn't be losing has to lose here. But otherwise, when you take a step back from that, it was, I like everybody in the match. I love the Usos. They were my tag team of the decade. And of course, I love Big E. Big E is
He's Big E.
He's my spirit animal. I love Big E. Are you kidding me? Him having the belt at the barbershop in that video is just...
He's the greatest. I remember vividly when you came on the distraction, they were doing they just done the draft, I want to say. It's like a year ago now. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying on that show, and we had some fun talking about I really think Big E is the most chance to be an actual star, like a real star, not a wrestling star, like a crossover, sitting on talk shows. I'm ready for it, man. And I'm not like a WWE guy, but I just hope they give him the same shot that Drew got, because frankly, I think his upside is on a different level. And Blair's true. I'm not trying to. He worked hard, but in terms of charisma and charm and personality, Big E's an all-time option. This is a guy. He should have been there a while back, but he's got there now. So I hope they give him a fair shot. I will not comment on whether or not I believe that will happen. I would just say I hope it does.
I hope so too. I really am. I'm hoping he has a solid WWE Championship run, and I hope it's not just a one and done as as Kofi's was. I want to see him in the title picture and around the title picture for a long time. I mean, there the other things talking about on the show. So they had advertised Kevin Owens versus Happy Corbin, but Happy Corbin attacked Kevin Owens before the match, and then we just moved on. It didn't happen. So there's a weird thing WWE's been doing now, and I don't understand it structurally. Where Seth Rollins' entrance music hits, and he starts making his way down to the ring, and they're like, "We'll hear from Seth Rollins after the break." We come back from break, and we get the Bianca Belair hometown girl video and listing all her accomplishments and all of that stuff, and how we're gonna get her hometown celebration. Then we have Kayla Braxton interviewing Paul Heyman. And Paul Heyman is excellent here. And Paul Heyman's like, "Leave me alone, Kayla Braxton. I am not the advocate for Brock Lesnar anymore. If you want a scoop, go find a scoop. But leave me alone. You can't be with me, blah, blah, blah." And he turns around and Big E is waiting right there again. Paul Heyman congratulates Big E and says he made the smart decision going after the championship. He knew he could win because he couldn't beat Roman Reigns. But then Big E gets attacked by the Usos, and Roman stands over a fallen Big E, and then that segment is over. And then we come back to the ring, and Seth Rollins is still in the ring, and then he starts his promo. And my question here is, am I to believe that Seth Rollins just like came out to the ring and just stood there while waiting for all of that to pass? And I mean, he even acknowledged it. He even on the mic went, "Oh, that sucks for Big E. Somebody should have helped him." But why structurally? If you were structuring this show, and they did this a bunch on Raw where like Drew McIntyre's music hit and they're like, Drew McIntyre's got a match next. And then they played like 3 backstage segments and then come back and they're like, all right, now time for that Drew McIntyre match that he's been obviously standing here in the ring for the last 10 minutes.
Look, I mean, I think there's
fired.
There's many reasons to analyze that, and I could give a sincere answer, but I have a question to your question.
Yes.
Why are we booking Seth Rollins to cut 10-minute in-ring promos anyway? That's the real problem here. Let's cut out the main issue. I'm sorry, look, I'm going to be wrestling is subjective, so if you liked that segment, all hell, good luck.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot believe people like that in their pro wrestling. That ain't even a promo to me, man. That's just a dude talking for like, I don't even know what he was telling me. He's just talking and he's doing like stand-up comedy stuff where he's like playing off the people and he's like charging around and the lights are all dimmed and it's like, what is this? Who cares? And here's a bit like, I'm biased. I don't really particularly enjoy Seth Rollins, but part of it is because they make him do stuff like this. There are a handful of wrestlers ever that I am happy to listen to talk in the ring for 10 minutes. He isn't one of them, believe it or not, okay? But he's what they do with Charlotte. I remember they used to send Braun out there for in-ring promo. Who needs this stuff? It's pointless. It's terrible for the live crowd. No one enjoys it. It's just bad. I have never understood it. And last night, I lost my mind with that promo. He kept going. It was terrible. No one even cut him off. Brutal.
Yeah, it sucked. There's just so much about this I don't get. But the entrance thing just drives me insane because it's not like throughout the segment before I was sitting there waiting for like, all right, can't wait to see what Seth Rollins has to say once Big E is done being jumped by the Usos. If anything, it was as soon as that segment was over, which I enjoyed, Seth Rollins in the ring. I'm like, oh yeah, he just had an entrance like 10 minutes ago. I forgot all about this. And like, that is the one thing. Sorry to get all WWE versus AEW on you folks, but I'm going to. Because this was a point Eric Bischoff brought up like a year and a half ago. And I didn't appreciate it until I went to my first Dynamite after he said it. But he was like, the thing I appreciate more as I watch AEW is versus as I watch WWE is how much content AEW gives the fans in the arena. And in that sense, what he meant was there isn't a whole lot happening backstage and there isn't a whole lot of having an audience sitting there watching stuff on a screen, except the one time that they actually did that at the Blood and Guts show. But for the most part, the show mostly transpires in the ring, not necessarily be backstage. And just to think about the idea that you would send somebody out to the ring and have them stand there as a live audience is sitting there just staring at them. And it's like, okay, now go watch the screen while this wrestler is waiting for stuff to happen, I think is a tremendous waste of the fans' time who paid to get in the building.
Right. I think I read, because again, I was actually involved in the SmackDown discussion for the name of this show. So, you know, I the blue brand I returned for this week, and I read somewhere that there was like 24 minutes of in-ring time on SmackDown.
No.
So I think, you know, that tells you one thing. I'll be honest with you, I hate the way a lot of it's formatted where it feels like they have no idea what's going to happen on the show until it's happening. Yeah. I hate that, man. Like, I really despise it. And that's the thing is, I like in-ring promo segments. Do you know how much it helps me that Tony Schiavone sets most of those up as an interview? Because the idea is it's on the format. Schiavone's going to interview this guy. That's very different to guys just sort of walking out and talking in the middle of the restaurant and no one's stopping them. But yeah, I believe it's like 24 minutes of in-ring time. Like, I just think that's insane. And I know that if I tweeted it, I'll get quotes with, that's wrestling's about characters and all this, you know, nonsense and all that. And it's true to some extent, like 22 minutes. Come on, man. You know, this, like, it pops AEW's women's division, they should try to make it good by its own standard, not compared to WWE. And like, there's obviously things WWE do better, but like when I watched SmackDown last night, Will, I was like, I can't believe these people log on and go crazy about AEW's women's division. Like, what happened with the women last night? They did that 2-minute match. They had the finish that, was what it was. Obviously, the closing segment. Am I wrong for thinking it's bad that matches don't go over 2 minutes? I don't know. It kind of seems bad to me, man.
Yeah, I mean, it does, especially when, like, again, I think about value. And, like, if I were paying to go to this show, I want as much content happening in front of me as possible. And as somebody who does go to shows often, I tend to watch shows from that perspective of, was this a good value for people? And, like, I don't know. I don't necessarily feel like that in particular was. And yeah, like it was the first time we'd seen like Tony Storm in a while or Liv Morgan like doing anything. And hey, we at least set up a pay-per-view match between Liv Morgan and Carmella. And here's another thing. So Extreme Rules is coming up, right? You look at the Extreme Rules. I hate that Extreme Rules exists. And I say this because I'm looking at the Extreme Rules card and I actually think it's a good card.
Yeah.
I think on paper, I'm like, this actually looks pretty decent. Like a show that is, like all of these matches seem worthy of being on the pay-per-view. When you have Becky versus Bianca and Damian Priest versus Sheamus, Charlotte versus Alexa Bliss, Roman Reigns versus Finn Balor, Usos versus the Street Profits, Liv Morgan versus Carmella. Like all of this is like stuff that's been built and seems like worthy of being on the pay-per-view. Yes. But the thing that everybody's talking about right now is that this is Extreme Rules and none of these matches have any extreme stipulations on them, and they probably will, but they're all just going to be shoehorned next week because next week is the go home show.
I'm sure it's fine.
And so like none of this stuff feels like, all of this feels like any normal pay-per-view. And if this was just like WWE matches, I don't know if you could sell a pay-per-view called WWE matches.
They should do that one.
Yeah. But like, if you just called this like WWE, what was the old September pay-per-view? Unforgiven. Fine. This is a good Unforgiven card, but it's Extreme Rules, and now everybody's stuck on the idea that there's extremely. Thank you, Ed Talks. But the idea that people are now expecting and want these matches that all have extreme stipulations, but none of the feuds are calling for it. Like, I don't necessarily feel that Roman Reigns and Finn Balor are in such a blood feud that it's going to require some kind of extreme stipulation.
Yeah.
Bianca and Becky haven't had a regular match yet. Like, they had that quick one, but otherwise there hasn't been a match. Like, I always feel like that's kind of like the last resort to like, okay, this feud has gone through everything it's gone through. Now it needs an extreme stipulation. Nothing on this card, except maybe the Usos and Street Profits, because it's gone on for so long, has called for that. And they're going to shoehorn all of this in next.
I'm very concerned as a fan of the. So I want them to do Charlotte and Alexa as a wrestling match, because I legitimately feel like I've seen Alexa wrestle once in the last year. And like, I think that's kind of lame to me. Someone that enjoys her stuff. I'm very concerned they're going to go like full themed cinematic, because I know it's in Columbus, but that doesn't mean anything to them. They're idiots, right? Like, I could absolutely see them doing a playground match where she's like walking around the swing set and stuff. And if that happens, Will, I'm going to immediately tweet you and be like, we shouldn't have complained about the stipulations. We should. I actually, on Twitch, ladies and gentlemen, I was on the Fightful Twitch, one of the leading wrestling websites in the world, and I talked about this show for 15 minutes thinking it was Clash of Champions. And the chat informed me multiple times it's Extreme Rules. And I was like, well, maybe it is. I don't know. It seems like Clash of Champions to me. So to me, Will, I'm looking forward to Clash of Champions next Sunday in Columbus, Ohio. I'm fired up for it, pal. Extreme Rules, who needs it,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if this is Clash of Champions, this is fine. Because all of these are title matches except for Liv Morgan and Carmella. Like, it's fine as Clash of Champions. Yeah. Where it's not fine is Extreme Rules. But also, I don't want you to add like silly stipulations to this stuff. I'd rather you change the show than change the matches. That's what I would.
Which is telling, right? But then this is the, and this is the real core of these conversations is the bar is on the floor. You know, like people are going to accept, like they're going to announce like a chair match, and people are like, yeah, I'm excited, and then we have to pretend. You know, it's terrible. I don't know. It's not new. Now, by the way, while we're doing this segment has become me asking you questions about WWE, like I'm like an alien. But I'm intrigued. Did I miss an episode or a memo in terms of Rick Boogs? Because I tuned in to WWE Friday Night SmackDown last night. He beat Bob Roode in about 2 minutes flat, and I nearly broke my television set. I nearly just lost my mind. I get it. Bob Roode's old, and you know, who is he? What does he do?
He's guitar guy that Pat McAfee marks for, and
why is Shinsuke his second now?
Yeah, I don't know. And then Shinsuke is facing. That's another one that got added, but we're going to see Shinsuke take on Apollo Crews. Which, you know, I was having a conversation with Phil Lindsay last week, and he brought up what happened to Apollo Crews. Like that was they got, and that's the funny thing is I said that it had a lot of backlash because they're like, no, he's embracing his heritage. And I said the thing about the kind of gimmick is that it has a shelf life, and that like you're only really going to get those initial promos out of it, but ultimately that kind of gimmick doesn't have any longevity, and it doesn't feel like anything's happened with Apollo in the last couple of months, and now he's having this match with Shinsuke coming up. He'll probably lose, and we move on. Yeah, and he'll get moved to the other brand where he can fill the same role of mid-card loser, because they, in their minds, we've given him his big win. He has credibility, right? And you know, let's be honest, when you say something like that, the response is always like you're asked to let it play out. But then once it's played out, you're not allowed to be like correct about it. You know, like it's now played out. Will was right, but no one's coming back to you saying you were correct. Like, it's just, I think Apollo is, to me, he's such an indictment of their system, man. I really do. Like, I get that everyone needs characters and personas and all this, you know, nonsense. But like, he can do a lot. He could. I just want to see him be a kick-ass wrestler. Yes. They had it for a while. Do you remember when he got the US title on Raw and he was just kind of being himself? And it's like, this is a good mid-card baby, upper mid-card baby face. And it's like, no, he has to be like a full-on caricature. And like, look, if he wants to do it, then fair. But like, let's be honest, that's what it is. And as you said perfectly, a gimmick like that, it isn't the sort of thing that's going to sustain at the top level. You know, it will come up and it will go down. So it's a shame. I don't know what his prospects are in that promotion, but I'll be real with you. If you'd have told me 2 years ago he'd have got this far, where he was at that point, I'd have been like, good for Apollo, man. Because at the point there, he was never on TV, right? So he wasn't. But it was clear that like they liked him. Because especially if you're like a body guy or a body company, like Apollo Crews has a great fucking body. Like that's the thing is I could have absolutely seen that. The only other thing to talk about is the main event segment. It was the homecoming celebration of one Bianca Belair, which featured Nair Kane, who looks like hell, but whatever. You would not think that's a person like working regularly, anything but like conventions, but he is the mayor of Knox County, Tennessee. And he introduces Bianca. Big reaction. They focused on her family and like all of that, and like all of that was great. And she's interrupted by Becky Lynch. I said on RBR this week, and this isn't just a WWE take, I mentioned it about the Elite as well, that I think looking stupid is cheap heat, and that there's other ways to get it. But apparently we've got Becky, we got Seth Rollins, we got the Elite. Like it is just the go-to of how can I look ridiculous to get the crowd to boo? But it works. Yeah, I actually have paid attention to this stuff because I was intrigued how the crowd reacted. And in fairness, I guess it's worked. I think our friend Tape Machine's famed Twitter personality put it best when he said, like, Becky's way of doing this is basically she's just terrible. Because like that stuff, like they'll boo her because it's bad. And like, I don't know, maybe that's unpopular, but I think this stuff's, I mean, she's kind of awful in it, but that's the idea, I guess. I don't know. Will they boo her now? Like, I am not really like enjoying Becky in this role, but I guess I'm not supposed to, because I guess she's trying to make us hate her, and with this crowd, it did work. The crowd was, and of course, it was Bianca's hometown crowd, so that was the reaction she was going to get. But yeah, Becky interrupts, and I thought something was going to happen with that key to the city, like using it as a weapon, because Bianca was given the key to the city by Kane. But I guess it's just a real key to the city. And that was that. I thought, is somebody going to like use that as a weapon, choke somebody with it? Is that what's happening here? No, it was just a key to the city. And so I'm sorry, I had to bring up the Bob Roode deserves better.
Bob Roode for the fleet, brother. Give me some AEW dark matches in the Impact Zone with Bob Roode. Oh hell, there you go. Now we're cooking, Will. That's when the territory really picks up.
Yeah, and then Reese says the McGregor act was overplayed, but the stuff here stinks. Yeah, and so of course Bianca gets shown up again because they shake hands. She holds on to Becky this time, and it was supposed to kind of play up what happened at SummerSlam, except Becky shows her up again and hits her with a Uranagi and walks away. And that's how the show ended.
It rules so much. Like, it rules so much they did that. And I know that your reaction is the same as mine, which is like, yep, that's what they would do, of course. And then you move on. Like, it's so... The bar is on the floor, my friend. I mean, I watched that and I was just like, that is exactly what I would expect them to do, yes. Like, why you would do that, I don't know. But everyone has to be grounded in some form or fashion. I'll say this much. They have my interest in terms of the result of that match. Not because they've done a great job telling a story, purely because my booking mind is like, good luck, guys. You know, I don't know. Because I think there's a chance that Becky drops the belt and just goes to the other brand. And it's like, but then what do you even achieve there?
If they don't put a step on this, I see it in a DQ and they just extend it.
Right.
Like that's where my trust is with all of that.
Yeah. And that's the problem, right? Because when you build that in your audience, it's hard to get excited about stuff. Quickly before we depart this this apparently great SmackDown program, what are they doing with Brock and Roman? Like in terms of that, what I just said about finishes, like because I don't care. I'm not gonna pretend to be like angry about it, but like the idea of Brock coming back and beating the guy that no one can beat seems like a great example of like everything wrong with the promotions booking for the last decade. Is Brock winning that belt? What do we think's happening there?
I have no idea, to be honest. Because I would like to see them surprise us and have like Finn win, and then because they say it's only a title match if Roman retains, and then wouldn't it be a shocker if Roman didn't and the match still happens, but it's non-title? I don't know. I honestly don't. I do though. Have to part. So, folks, because my daughter has a thing in 5 minutes, and I just got a text from my wife that's like, "Hey, you realize that there's a thing happening," and so I have to get her that. Joe, thank you for being here, talking all the things here, and I'm going across the pond again next week. Because joining us here on Wrestling with Weekends is my old dear friend of the last, God, I've known him 12 years now. But Barry Murphy is joining me here on Wrestling with Weekends. So please come check that out. Outside of that, folks, again, like I said, I can't do it on the video version anymore. So the closing music will have to stay on the audio version. But I will say that that's it for this edition of Wrestling with Weekends. Joe of The Distraction. Of course, I'm pointing in the wrong direction because I hate that this picture is mirrored. But Joe of The Distraction, Fightful.com. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Yes. And we will see you next time. And have a great day. Peace.